Hartcher, and today we are talking about the importance of being outside, the importance of spending time for yourself or putting aside time for yourself, and how it ties into a really productive and effective and a thriving work life balance. So, let's talk about the outdoors and being outdoors and why we should be outdoors more. Well, the statistics show that we spend 90+% of our time indoors. You think about it, we sleep indoors, we then get in the car, go to work indoors, come home in the car and go back into the house and do our nightly routine. And and in essence, we could be a lot more time than 90% indoors, particularly during the winter. Now, what effect is this having on our work life balance, productivity, or just our ability to thrive? It's having a massive impact because being outside is us receiving information and energy. So we go outside, we get energized from the energizing source of the sun. Without the sun, there's no life. And it's our source of life, our way in which to connect with uh, well, for the body to understand what time of the day it is, it gets that time from the sun, it gets that time from the temperature, it gets that time from, I guess, the pressure, the ambient pressure. It gets the time from food. So if we don't do time outdoors, then how does our body know what to do? It gets disordered, and this ties back into we want a very coherent state in our body. The only way we can get coherence is coherent signals going into our body, coherent input. And we get that coherent input from the sun. It's telling us what to do at what time of the day. So, unless we're connecting, regularly connecting by going outdoors with the sun, our body doesn't know what to do at that point in time. It doesn't know where it is. It gets its orientation and timing from the sun. So, we need to connect with the sun throughout the day because it's telling our body what to do and what to make at various times of the day. In the morning, it needs the light signal in order to turn on our engines, to get our engines going so we have energy for the day. So we need to connect with the sun first thing in the morning to turn our engines on. And we do this by getting up and watching sunrise and getting the red light and the orange light, and then it goes yellow. And that's really important to tell the mitochondria, hey, it's morning time. It's time to produce energy to help you get through the day and to do the things that you want to and inspire to do. So that first sunlight is really critical to tell the body what to start doing. And that's just, turn on cortisol. And in essence, that's what we're doing by having coffee is that we're elevating our cortisol. It's what we do by exercising is we're elevating cortisol. Well, by seeing first light, we initiate cortisol production. We also, we turn on our engines, initiate cortisol production. We also start to initiate our metabolism. So our thyroid gets active and starts getting ready to metabolize food by seeing first sunrise, by seeing morning light. And it also, our body starts producing neurotransmitters that we need to get through the day, such as dopamine, that motivation neurotransmitter, serotonin, that, connected feeling, that feeling of feeling that, yeah, I'm feel good, I feel alive. We generate that serotonin, that dopamine through UVA light, morning light. Same with the thyroid. We activate that through morning light. So we need to be constantly checking in with the sun. Just like we check in with our friends, our family, our children, we need to be tapping into nature. We need to be tapping into the sun to let the body know what it needs to do at that time of the day. Same with our sex hormones. They don't know what to do. They get disorientated if we're just indoors all the time. They just keep doing the same thing, which is might be contradicting what you want from a health outcome. I recently had a client that had insulin resistance and leptin resistance and was constantly gaining weight and had no energy. Part of the problem was the body was under constant blue light, constant LED lights all day. So the body was doing what it's meant to do under that environment. So under LED lights and blue lights, yes, what you're going to do is get this discoherent signal, because it's a very narrow band light that you're getting. You're getting predominantly blue and white light. And so the body just, what it does is elevate cortisol, elevate insulin. Elevated insulin results in, insulin or desensitized response to insulin. And what happens is the body just keeps pushing all the energy that's put into the body to storage, as opposed to allowing the person to utilize that energy. So those incoherent signals my client was getting was due to excess time indoors and not enough connection with sunlight to tell the body what to do. And so we've rescheduled his day or reoriented his day around the sun so that he can get coherent signals from the sun that tells the body what to do at the various times of the day so that he gets the ultimate productivity, the ultimate output. So this disorder that's created from being inside is also created through us not allowing time for ourselves. Because if you think about it, if we're constantly allowing input into our brain and not allowing time to process the input, disorder will prevail, because systems will go from a state of order to disorder over time. That's the state of entropy, is energy will dissipate over time. And the degree of that dissipation is the amount of disorder in the system. And that's what will happen in your brain. It will become more and more disordered the less time you allow for yourself. So if you're constantly busy and allowing inputs to come through notifications, emails, people's requests, and looking at news, you've got all this input and there's no time or no time put aside to process all those inputs, to make sense of them, to put order to your mental health. So we need to actually put in time in order to create coherence and create order in our brain. If we're not allowing time to sit with ourselves, self-reflection, then what's going to happen is a continued state of disorder. And the degree of that disorder will be dependent on the amount of time you sit with yourself and your thoughts, and allow the work to be put in to create some order within your brain. Look, you might need some help to do this. If your system's so disordered, your mental health so disordered, you may need some help to get coherence and to get order in terms of the way you're thinking. And so reach out for help if that's the case. If you can't create order when you're sitting with yourself, but it's essential for us to have regular time during the day. And I suggest you have this reflection time outdoors, just like I'm recording this episode outdoors, is to allow the body to receive coherent signals from the sun that it understands and can read. And in that process, there's regulation, because the sun has a complete spectrum and it's got balancing effects of stimulus and disstimulus, or stimulus and regulation. And this is the problem with the indoors, is that it's constant, like one signal, and there's not a balancing regulation signal that the body's getting to be able to balance the I guess one-sided spectrum the body is receiving from being indoors. And this can be the same with information that we take in. We can be taking in information from certain sources, and that's those certain sources are giving a one-sided message. And so if we join certain tribes, certain people, they will take a certain view on something, and you won't get a complete view. You'll get a very disordered view. And Claude Shannon, who won a Nobel Peace Prize on information theory, he said that information, that goes to disinformation or misinformation is missing information. So information will go from a state of order to disorder unless we put the work in to see the bigger picture, to see the complete picture. And so this will happen naturally in our brain if we're just getting information from one source and not seeing the bigger picture and balancing that information and seeing the other side. Then we get disordered information. It creates missing information, and that creates emotional dysregulation. And so we get quite emotional when we're just seeing a one-sided picture. When we see the complete picture, we can regulate our emotions. And so we don't want to allow misinformation or disinformation to happen by just getting the information from one source, a single source, without looking at the bigger picture and looking at various sources and questioning all the information that we're taking in. And this process can only happen if we're allowing reflective time to process the information we're taking in. So if we're not doing that, then we just take everything as, oh, I read that and that's true. And a lot of it's just headlines. A lot of what we read is just headlines because we're so busy to actually read the full article or to take in the full perspective of the article. We just read the summary, and the summary is all to make you click on the article and to open it up. And so it's all like clickbait sort of stuff that really is just creating a response from you because you want to know, because you're so disturbed by what you're reading in the headline. But you end up get distracted and read something else, and you miss the full picture of that article, and you miss the fullness of that article. And what that can create is emotions. You get very angry at what you're reading, and it creates disorder in the brain. There's missing information, and that can create mental distress, mental health disorders. The only way to correct that is to actually allow time to fully process and become aware that there is missing information, and to look for that missing information so that you get a complete picture, and that autonomic nervous system can regulate itself, can balance. It will balance itself based on the complete picture or full information, and I guess allowing the fullness to come through. And so all this being outdoors and allowing time to be with ourselves is allowing the fullness of life, the complete connection to oneness of all things and all people. If we don't spend time with ourselves, we don't get to know ourselves. We're not touching base with ourselves. We're not connecting with how we're feeling. We don't understand. We lose ourselves in the process of not connecting with ourselves and spending time with ourselves. So we need this time to better know ourselves. When we know ourselves, as and can completely connect with ourselves, then we can better relate to other people. We can better connect with other people. If we have a unhealthy relationship with self, then we're going to have more unhealthy relationships with others. And so then we have this disconnection with others, and then we withdraw even more because we think they're the problem. But really, it's us. It's inside of us. It's because we've allowed all this misinformation to create all this disorder in our brain, to create all this misinformation from not being outside, and getting coherent signals from the sun, and the body's all chaotic, the mind's chaotic, and we're in complete disorder. And the only way to return to health, return to good mental health, is to actually put the work in. The only way to bring order to a system is to put work in. It's just like a house, for example. If you clean your house, and you could do nothing in that house, right? You don't live in the house. You go away for a month, 2 months, or 3 months. You'll come back to a messy house. There will be a natural state of progression to disorder. It's the way the energy dissipates, and there'll be more dust than when you left. You'll find more dust. And if you're in the house and you're constantly working in the house but not putting order in the house, it does become very disordered. Things become misplaced. Things become out of place because you're not putting the work in to create order. It's the same with our brain. If we aren't putting the effort in to reflect and to understand why we do what we do, and to put the time into understanding why others are doing what they're doing, and to understand the reactions or the impact of our reactions to others, and all that sort of work, then what happens is misinformation, disinformation prevails, disorder prevails, and we don't see the fullness, and we don't see the complete picture, and we get this very emotional, irrational response because of the missing information and the disorder that's been created in the mind. And this happens in the body when we're indoors. We get not the complete picture. We get a one-sided signal that creates disorder over time. Initially, it doesn't. The body has regulative mechanisms, but because it keeps receiving the same signal, just like if you're reading the same articles or following the same people and getting the same information all the time, over time, disorder will prevail. Information will go from order to disorder, and there will be missing information. Your body will go from a state of order to incoherence, disorder. And this is simply because we're not putting in the work, the effort to allow the body. Like, so in order to create order in the body, we need to allow it to see the fullness of the light signal. And we need to get outside to see that. In order to create order in the mind, we need to sit and reflect and to understand how we're feeling and why we're feeling that particular way, and what is the missing information that you're perceiving, that you're only getting a one-sided view that's making you emotional. You need to look for the fullness, look for the other side to create fullness and to get the full picture and to create order, as opposed to allowing disorder to continue to prevail. So I hope this helps in terms of understanding how to live a complete and full life by allowing yourself time in the environment to get coherent signals that have both stimulus and regulating signals that allow your body to get ordered. And it's the same with your mind, by putting aside time to reflect and to be with yourself and to understand yourself. And when you know thyself, you will have a better connection with yourself. And therefore, that will result in better connection with others. You won't be deflecting parts of you that you disown onto others and thinking that they're the problem. And it's the same with our signals that we allow into our body. We want full, complete signals, and these come from nature. And these come from disconnecting with technology and connecting more with nature. It's the same with allowing the connection with yourself and falling in love with yourself, so that you can fall in love with who you are and others for who they are and the world for what it is. And we have this complete connection to oneness. And that's what we strive ultimately in life, is to be fully connected, to be at one with self, others, and the environment. So that's it for this episode of Joyful Mate. I hope it was a wholesome episode. I hope it was thought provoking, and I hope it's provided some stimulus for you to reflect and to think about what you do and how you can incorporate more nature and how you can incorporate more time to be with yourself, so that you get to know yourself. And yeah, so if you've got any feedback on the episode, please share it. If you've got any further questions, please share your questions. I would love to hear them. And I'd love to provide more insights in this area if you're that way inclined. So thank you for tuning in to another episode of Joyful Mate. It's been a delight to share this information with you. And I hope you continue to strive towards oneness with yourself, with others, and the universe. Thank you.